scroll to the top. So you're gonna read just the top line for whichever one is gonna be first, okay? And then I'll find the next one.
I call this meeting to order. City staff will now call the roll.
Lloyd Nichols,
Here.
John Landis, Blair Swain,
Here.
Beth Whitney, Jimmy Reed,
Here.
Pamela Phoenix.
Here. The Planning and Zoning Commission makes recommendations to the City Council. All items approved today will be heard by the City Council at its regular meeting on Wednesday, June 22nd, 2022, commencing at 9 a.m. If you received a notice for this meeting, you also have received a notice from the City Council meeting. Subdivision plats are approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission solely, unless there is a request for a waiver of escrow fees or construction. Only the City Council makes financial decisions. If any item is denied, the applicant has 10 calendar days to file a written appeal with the Planning Department. The appeal will then be acted upon by the City Council. If you are here to speak for or against an item, please state your name and address for the record. Comments should be limited to 5 minutes or less, although extensions of time may be granted by the chair upon request. The next work session will be held directly after the conclusion of this meeting, and it is open to the public. It will be held at the TDC building directly across the street. The next order of business is approval of the minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes of the last meeting? May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Mrs. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes from May 10th, 2022.
I have a motion. May I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Today, we have application Z220-025, Kid Opal Trustee on the table. Is there a motion to remove this item from the table?
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we remove Z22-025 from the table.
I have a motion from Commissioner Reed.
Second.
I have a second from Commissioner Blair. Any opposition? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. The application is removed. The board will now take staff comments, and the application will be considered.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is a zone change from RPO, Restricted Professional Office District, to Adaptive Reuse District, AR. The applicant is requesting the zone change to bring the single-family use of the property into conformance with the Unified Development Code for financing purposes. Located to the east and west are zoned RPO, Restricted Professional Office District. They are developed with single-family homes and undeveloped property, respectively. To the south is zoned R2, two-family residential district, and consists of a mixture of single-family homes and duplexes. To the north, C1 is zone C1, light commercial district, and consists of a physician's office. The future land use guide suggests that this is general commercial. This request would amend the future land use guide to office. The applicant originally requested R1A at the previous Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. It was discussed that AR, Adaptive Reuse District, would provide the applicant the ability to utilize the property for single-family use as well as to allow for non-residential uses for future growth considerations. The staff has reviewed the request and recommends approval.
Does the board have any questions? I have one card on this item. Kim Maddox?
I would just want you to know that I appreciate
If you'd please come to the mic and state your name and address for the record.
Kim Maddox, and my address is 10180 County Road 391, Tyler. And
Thank you, Ms. Maddox.
I would just like to thank you all for considering the rezoning change. I'm here for my tenants who had to work and couldn't take off today, so just wanted you to know that I appreciate the consideration whichever way you make up. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Maddox. Is there anyone else here to speak for this item? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this item? Is there anyone else here to speak on this item? Are there any more questions from the commission? If not, may I have a motion for the application?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve Z22-025.
I have a motion,
Second.
and I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. The application is approved. The next item is zoning, PD 220088. We do not have enough members to hear this item. As a result, if Mr. Reed would have to recuse himself, we would not have enough members to have a quorum. So we will move to the next item, which is item number PD 22010, the Blue Pinnacle Group LLC and the Cumberland Gap LTD. Narani?
Yes. Oh, there it is. Good afternoon, Commissioners, and good afternoon to everyone present here. This is a zone change request, not from C1 to PCD. I would like to correct that. It is from Agricultural AG, C1, PCD, and PMF to a PMF site plan. And this property is located east of the southeast intersection of Blue Mountain Boulevard and West Cumberland Road, and that's the property that you see there on the map right there. The applicant is requesting the zone change to allow for a multifamily development. Going through the zoning, surrounding zoning of that area, properties to the north are zoned AG and C1, and that is the cemetery and also some undeveloped land to the north. Properties to the east are zoned PCD, R1A, and AG, and it consists of a mixture of undeveloped land and single-family homes, and also there's a city fire station to the east. Properties to the south are all predominantly R1Bs and single-family homes, and they are currently developed. And the properties to the west is zoned C1 and is undeveloped land as of right now. Looking at the future land use guide, this is consistent with the future land use guide because it identifies this area as mixed use center, and apartment complexes, homes are a part of mixed use, so this is consistent. The applicant is requesting, let me go to the site plan. There it is. The applicant is requesting a 3-story, 264, not this one, it's this one right there. It's 264 gated multifamily development with a density of 14.29 units per acre. With the site plan, it shows it's a 25 feet minimum setback, and the apartments would be 44 feet in height. And also, they have agreed to do a shared access easement to the west, so they could use the median access off of Cumberland Road. The applicant this would be a completely gated community, and the main access would be off of the Cumberland Road. They also have right in and right out the boulevard entrance on Cherry Hill, and the 2 entrances to the south that will also be gated, and it'll only be for a pedestrian access. They'll have a pedestrian access gate so that the children could walk to the school, and also it would be access to EMS and fire. Parking.
Excuse me. Thank you.
Parking, landscaping, and signage will be as per the Unified Development Code. Since there's single-family homes to the south, a type A buffer yard would be required as per the UDC, and the applicant has mentioned that in the site plan as well. Looking at some history for that property, in 2008, the property was rezoned from R1B, which you see the zoning predominantly to the south, so it was rezoned from R1B to PMF to allow for 131 single-story attached condominiums, and with the private street that will be connecting internally from the public streets to the south. That was what was approved in 2008. This site plan increases the density to 14.92, and the previous one that was approved for was 9.42. Go back. Out of the 49 notices that was sent, no notices was received in favor, but 10 notices was received in opposition within the notification area and 2 outside the notification area, bringing the protest to 5.95%. The opposition was mainly concerned about having a multi-story apartment complex behind their single-family homes, and was also concerned about traffic, access, safety, and also decrease in the property values. Most of the notices that we received had the same concerns. Also talking to the applicant, last week I noticed that they had decided to not include this northeast portion of that subject property into their site plan when we don't have an updated site plan, removing that, and that might change some protest calculations. So the applicant needs to address that at some point. So as of right now, the staff recommends tabling this item. It is for applicant to make some modifications to the site plan, also locating multi-story structures near the single-family homes and having concerns with the neighbors. We would recommend tabling this item for 30 days so the applicant has enough time to address those concerns and put everything on the site plan, and at the same time talk to the neighbors and address those concerns that they have.
All righty, thank you, Durrani. We have a few cards. The first is Rebecca Sanders. Okay, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, please, 1 minute, Ms. Sanders. Does the board have any questions?
Thorani, I have a question specifically about the old, the current PMF site plan. Is it restricted to single-story development, or is it allowed multi-story?
It was for a single-story attached condos. It was not for multi-story.
Okay, so it specified single-story. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And the additional land, the intersection, I guess the northeast, that portion, that's going to be excluded? Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any more questions from the commission? All righty, Ms. Sanders. If you could please step to the podium and state your name and address.
Thank you very much. Good
You're
afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rebecca Sanders. I live at 1810 Balsam Gap in Tyler. And I wanted to say that when my husband and I purchased our home in Balsam Gap, it was 2010, and the neighborhood was a little bit different. You know, there were only a couple of houses in Elk River, and it's been built up, and that's great. We've seen young families, people walking through the neighborhood, parents and grandparents walking their kids to school each day. It's just a very nice neighborhood. When my husband passed away a few years ago, I decided to stay in my house. A lot of people said, you don't need this house, you should move. But I like the neighborhood. People were friendly. I knew my neighbors because we had lived on the same street for a long time. This is a neighborhood of homes and families. Families who have put down roots. Apartments and multifamily units are not appropriate here. Apartments are important. I do believe that. Obviously, they serve a great need. It's a great source of temporary housing, but not in a neighborhood of homes and families who have invested in their homes, and they plan to be here for a while. The increase in traffic along Cherry Hill, Balsam Gap, Cumberland, Blue Mountain will be detrimental. Safety will be an even bigger concern than it is now with all the families and the young kids. We'll have more traffic with the temporary residents in the neighborhood. And this is not even to mention what's going to happen with our home values. There are plenty of apartments in Tyler, just on Old Jacksonville Highway. There's Madison, Palomar, and even Cumberland apartments that are close, but they're not in the middle of a residential neighborhood. They are in business areas and around eating places and other establishments. There are places to build apartments, but please, not here, not in our neighborhood, not among our homes. I would urge you to please vote against this. And I sent in my form by email, but I was on vacation, so I didn't get it in by the 30th. So I brought it because I want to be sure that it is recorded. So if I may give it to this lady. Again, please, this is not the appropriate place for this. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank
I have
you,
a question
Ms.
for Ms. Sanders.
Question for Ms. Sanders.
Ms. Sanders, where do you live in relation to the subject property?
Oh, can I do it? Okay. I am right here, Yes.
Okay. Were you aware that this was zoned planned multifamily just right on the other side of the street behind the home there when you purchased at all?
No,
You
no.
weren't? Okay.
Cumberland had not been cut through at that time.
Okay. All right. That's all. Thank you, ma'am.
Anybody else?
Any more questions for Ms. Sanders?
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sanders. Mr. Rob Kelling? I tried.
Good afternoon, it's Rob Kelling.
Kelling. If you could please give your address, Mr. Kelling.
Rob Kelling, I live at 7295 Manassas Lane, right there on the corner of Balsam Gap and Blue Mountain. I'm that single house right there. I'm right in front of the school.
Okay.
Okay. Members of the committee, thank you for letting me speak today. My wife and I moved here in 2008. I wanted to get into a good single resident family neighborhood, okay? And again, we moved right there in front of the school. Love the area, love the people, love the neighbors. And again, I've been here since 2008, but I guess here in the recently I found out that they're putting a gas station on Cumberland and Blue Mountain right there on the corner. Now, I wasn't notified about that, okay? So that got me a little worked up. And then I found out about this situation here with the development going on, or possible development going on right beside my house. So I'm going to have a gas station 400 feet from my house, and now I'm going to have a development right next to my property. I've spoke to Mr. Holly about it, and he says, yeah, your property value could drop a little bit, might stay the same. You put all these condominiums all over the place with all the traffic and everything, it's going to lower your property values. Yes, it's going to be more traffic, but 300 plus units, how many cars is that? Okay, so you're going to have all these people and all these cars. We got a school right in front of our house. Where are the safety concerns for the school? We've already, I guess, putting up a gas station, but now we're putting all this congestion right there in front of all these people along Manassas right in there. It's just frustrating. I thought I was going into a development that my house would continue to build value and be quiet, single family. And I'll be honest with you, I was furious when I heard this was going on. Like I said, I did speak to Mr. Holly about the situation, and I let him know. How would you like to have purchased a house, 2008, and 14 years later, we're building 3-story condominiums right next to your house? And I would ask the members of the committee, how would you like that? How would you feel about your property value? I think you'd be a little concerned. Between the noise and the traffic, okay? Standard of living, okay? All these people, and then all these people be around my house. I guess I would ask you, what about the small guy here? Members of the committee, are you guys looking out for the small guy? this is a big corporation coming in, they're putting these apartment buildings in. What about us that have been here for years? We've been here for years, supporting the city, paying our taxes, love the area, love Tyler, and we feel like we're being squashed out. Anyway, I guess that was my main thing. It's a lot of what the young lady said before. I would urge you to vote against it. I just feel it's not good for the area, the community. But I mean, how would you like to look out your window and there's a 3-story condominium apartment building towering over you, okay? In addition to the safety and the noise and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's all I got. I appreciate your time, but I would urge you to vote against the proposed amendment. I just don't think it's right for the area. Okay.
Any questions for
questions?
Mr. Q?
Mr. Kelly, were you aware of the zoning when you purchased your home that was next door to you, next door to your house? The
No,
Plainville
sir.
family
No, sir.
zoning?
That road, Cumberland wasn't even in, that road going through there wasn't even in there. That was all just land.
Right, but remind us again when it was zoned.
2008.
2008. So it was zoned about the same time that you moved there. It sounds like.
But I was not made aware of that.
Weren't made aware of it.
No,
Okay.
sir.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Kelly? Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very
today.
much for your time.
And I apologize, we have a new system that we're utilizing that isn't coming in any specific order. Is there anyone here to speak for this item? Could you please come to the podium and state your name and address? I apologize for the disarray.
My name is Jefferson Holly, 409 Harper Street, Chattanooga, Tennessee. So we proposed this development actually twice. The first time we didn't really take into consideration the community, and so we actually sent in 312 units with 13 buildings, and since then we have looked at some of the concerns that have been brought forward by the neighbors and also the city. You and I spoke a couple times about privacy, traffic, safety was a #1 concern, and the proximity to the neighborhood. So we decreased from 13 to 11 buildings, from 312 units to 264 units. We inset all of our buildings away from the residential as much as we could, meaning between them and our buildings will be our parking fields, other than in 3 cases between buildings 3, 11, and 10, which we inset the direction of the building to be where the closest property line views the end of our building, so there should not be any privacy concerns there. We're working with type A, I believe, landscape barriers, and we're way, I think, beyond the landscape barrier distance setback between what we have. I spoke to 3 of the residents between concerns about solar panel blocking, noise and privacy. Our noise, we're pretty much community nights is what we have. We have wine and cheese nights, we have movie nights. We're very community forward with our tenants. Our management partners, Greystar, they're probably the largest in the country. They're over about 835,000 units. We have a 3-process vetting check where we have a background check, a in-person interview, and then another in-person interview for safety reasons. We don't let in just anybody. We've had 1 incident on our apartment complex in Clarksville, Tennessee, where we had a broken beer bottle in the pool, and that tenant is no longer welcome back to the pool for the remainder of his lease. So we're pretty strict about that. In terms of traffic through the neighborhood, there will be none. They're EMS fire entrances only. We have 80% of our traffic probably going through the main entrance on West Cumberland, and 20%, if that, going on our right in, right out only onto Cherry Hill. In terms of property value, looking at $55–60 million development, it's Class A market rate. It's not subsidized. It's not a D3. It's not. We're looking at workforce housing that's young professionals, new families, and a lot of. We usually have about 10% of 55 and up that are downsizing. That will remain there for the entirety of how long their plans are to stay living on their own. Retention, detention, we talked to a gentleman about stormwater concerns. We're working closely with our engineer. We have a local engineer. We're doing as much as we can to not affect them in any way. We don't think it'll affect them in any way. And we look forward to it. It's my second time in Tyler. I never heard of Tyler before my first time, and I enjoy being here, and I look forward to the opportunity to develop a project here. And I am a one-man show. I'm not a large corporation. So.
Okay. Did you state your name and address?
Jefferson Holly, yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Does the commission have any questions for Mr. Holly?
Mr. Holly, you said you spoke with 3 residents. Have you had an opportunity to talk with any others?
No, I reached out to each one of them. The ones that I was made aware of, I left them a voicemail and sent them an email inviting them to today's meeting,
Okay.
as well as getting together with the hopes of remediating some of their concerns.
Okay.
I did hear from one this morning that seemed to be the most concerned, and he was a phenomenal gentleman to talk to. Really enjoyed talking to him. Hopefully we can get together this week. He had a work conflict, but
Okay.
a lot of the other concerns, one gentleman actually wanted to know if his daughter could move in. He was very concerned about it, and we turned it around, and he seemed to be pretty positive about it.
Okay. Do you believe that if this was tabled today, that and given 30 days, that would be enough time to reach out to all of your neighbors and talk to them about their concerns, or have a meeting or something of that nature?
I would hope that it wouldn't be tabled just in the contractual times that we're restricted under. I
Okay.
believe that if it was to be passed today, between now and city council, I could host the HOA meeting and meet with the entire neighborhood and anyone that's concerned.
Okay.
We're just really constricted contractually, and we're trying to fast track it.
Okay.
So there is an HOA for this
I
neighborhood?
don't know. I just assumed there was. Most neighborhoods that I would assume in our period, the people that have reached out have them. I don't know if there is an HOA.
Any other questions from the commission?
Yes, I do. Mr. Holly, do these have exterior balconies?
They do have exterior balconies. They're almost identical to the Aubert on Grande. That's our one and only and closest comp. Is
Okay.
all amenity lush, just almost identical to them.
Do you have strict standards on what can be on a balcony?
Yes, very strict.
Can there be flags or towels or?
No, sir.
If I were to walk out, we could go back to the one where it shows the folks that had the red. If I walked out of any of those houses and on my back porch and I looked up, will I see the apartment?
Maybe see a gable from a distant building, but we're looking at screening options, and we're looking at the city's code is very strict on landscape buffers and trees. So, and I did bring to share with y'all some packets of our previous projects if y'all would like to see those. I didn't know if that was something that I could share.
If you'd like to.
Yeah, please. Any other questions from the commission? I do have one question, Mr. Holland. Ronnie, I may be confused, but I heard the term condo. So are these condos or apartments?
These are apartments.
Okay, because I heard you say lease. Okay.
How tall are these? I mean, from the bottom of the side roof line, are they?
If we're going flat roof, we'd probably lose about 10 feet. So, we could be 36, 34 feet. We tend to not go flat roof because of construction costs. We have a project in Alcoa, Tennessee right now that is 192 unit flat roof, and different types of roof, you're going membrane versus shingle, it really affects our construction costs.
You mentioned some of I think it was 3 different units that were facing, basically oriented to where there wasn't a long way of facing the current residents. On the side that is facing, are there going to be windows there?
It would be very similar to that, so there would be probably bathroom windows. There would not be living space windows. That is a project in Clarksville that we did. On the end, the bathroom windows are all stacked on top of each other. That's what it has been.
That's what they're planning.
From my experience with that project.
Not that specific.
I wouldn't expect a majority of viewing time to be looking into the neighborhood. And we do have about 2.7 acres of large green space that will be where we host community nights and stuff like that. So our tenant base, usually the younger families, the children that spend most of the time in the dog park or the playground or the pool, stuff like that.
Can you go back to the site plan, the preliminary site plan that we first saw? Can you point to where these neighborhood get-togethers are, or the?
That is the wrong.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, so it's in the large green space in between buildings 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Right. So, there, yes. The big square there.
Is that like an AstroTurf area? Or
That is going to be grass.
grass?
That'll be.
Mr. Hawley, you couldn't make your project work if you kept single-story planned multifamily.
We couldn't keep it working unless we were in Tyler with the density drop that we did.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot pursue anything that's under 18 units an acre. That's just our math.
Yeah.
But with the rent and the job growth as it is in Tyler, 14.29, dropping it from 312 to 264, we can barely make it work,
Yeah.
especially with construction costs where they are.
Sure.
Otherwise, we're already in the lot for more than we ideally would like to be. That's why we're dropping the corner.
Right.
Where our ground up cost is and our land cost is too high.
Yep.
We cannot, simple terms, no.
Yeah.
And so you're dropping the corner to develop it at a later date?
No, we're dropping the corner because it lowers our purchase price by $1.5 million.
So y'all didn't purchase the
We're
northeast
not
corner?
going to have it at all. We're releasing it completely.
Okay.
And the parking line there on that most northeastern corner is about where the property line will be.
I think that the issue that I have trouble with is just the abrupt change between single-family residential to three-story multifamily. I think, you know, the zoning aspect is, to me personally, is understood, and keeping it the same single story makes sense to me. However, I do think that getting together with your neighbors and gaining some support, or at least putting together your plan in front of them, is important, that they understand the scope of your project. Okay. I think that's all that you've got, Ms. Mayor.
Any more questions for Mr. Hawley from the commission? Thank you so much, Mr. Hawley.
Appreciate it.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak for this item? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this item? If you could please come to the podium and state your name and address, please.
I might have missed Casey Taylor, but I believe
Casey Brown?
No.
That's Casey. Do you want him
That's
first?
Casey. No.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, sorry.
Casey can come right after.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Ms. Mayor.
I really wanted to hear what Allison had to say.
You want that? Ladies first. If you could please state your name and address, please, for the record.
Casey Brown, 7721 Cherry Hill Drive, Tyler.
Okay, Mr. Brown.
Ready to go?
Yep.
I must say, I'm not as prepared as I was for my appraisal hearing a few weeks ago, so I'm going to be a little iffy. But we moved on Cherry Hill Drive in 2014, and love the neighborhood. It's just outside of the busyness of Tyler, although it's gotten a little busier since then. At the time, Cumberland was not completed all the way. You just had a little bit off of Broadway to the treatment plant, which wasn't aware of. Wasn't disclosed in property sales. The zoning that you have mentioned for this since 2008 wasn't disclosed to us either. For those of you that have lived in Tyler a long time, you understand that In Tyler, you gotta find shortcuts, because there's not interstate to get around Tyler very easily. So you gotta figure out, okay, I'm gonna go down here, I'm gonna take a right, you gotta find your cut throughs. And Cherry Hill, which is my street, was, before Cumberland, was part of the cut through from FM 2813, which is just outside the toll, 49. That was a cut through. They would come down Cherry Hill, then they would go into Blue Ridge, Flat Rock, and Balsam Gap, and get on over to Old Jacksonville from that direction. With Cumberland finally being opened a few years ago, the cut through has changed a little bit, but Cherry Hill is still a cut through. We have a lot of traffic and a lot of speeding. And I have documentation with the Tyler PD with trying to get regular patrols for officers to monitor speeding and ticketing just to try to reduce it, and that hasn't gone very well. But we have cars. If you haven't, I don't know if you've been on Cherry Hill, but it's a drag strip. It's a straight downhill or uphill drag strip, and they start at the stop sign and they go all the way up. In May of 21, we had an incident at 3:24 in the morning where a speeding truck he came down by the fire station to the stop sign at Elk River and Cherry Hill, gunned it, did a 180 and ended up in my front yard, 50 feet from my son's room, taking out the electricity for at least half the neighborhood for about a day. So it's a high traffic area, speeding is an issue. I feel that having an apartment complex in that area is only going to increase that problem and increase that some of those safety concerns. Privacy is also a concern, maybe not necessarily for my house, but some of the homes on Elk River and Balsam Gap where they're going to have an apartment building basically on the other side of the fence where they can, where people on the top floor can see into their backyards, into their living rooms. Property values are going to fall, although like I was in the appraisal district a couple of weeks ago, might not be a big issue, but ultimately, some people want high property values. They want their property values to be reasonable, and a development like this can hinder that. Mr. Holly said he's not from Tyler, so like I mentioned, in Tyler you've got to find your cut throughs to get around and to avoid Broadway and the loop. And this is definitely a cut through. So for me and for my neighbors, we ask you to consider to vote against this development and help keep our neighborhoods safe and pleasant where we can enjoy our properties. And if you want to see a picture of the crash in my front yard, you're welcome to. I've got a picture.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Any questions from the commission for Mr. Brown?
Mr. Brown, where exactly do you live on Cherry Hill? Can you tell from this map?
So if I'm looking at that correctly, that looks, so my home is not pictured in that area.
You're further south.
I'm further up. I'm in the middle of the hill going up Cherry Hill.
Okay, yep.
So I'm about 4 houses from up Cherry Hill from the Elk River intersection.
Okay, I know where you're at. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Brown from the commission? Thank you so much, Mr. Brown. Ms. Allison? If you could please state your name and your address for the record.
Hi, Allison Pollen, 1309 Elk River Road. And I apologize, I'm not nearly as prepared as anyone else who spoke, but I second everything they said. I just found out about this last night on a dog walk when I saw the sign. So I was very concerned that this is my first knowledge is walking my dog and seeing that sign. I texted several others in the neighborhood who they were unaware of it as well. So I think you have a lot of opposition that you might not be aware of who were unable to be here today. So, and to Mr. Hawley's point, that Auberge apartment, that is a lovely apartment complex. But if that is in my neighborhood, I would be very concerned because of the proximity. If I have a 3-story apartment complex, I'm gonna see it from my front yard. I'm gonna see it from my backyard. They won't necessarily be looking down on me, but I will be able to see that loud and clear. To answer your question, I was unaware of the zoning when I moved here in 2014.
Okay.
I will be speaking to my realtor about that because I would not have bought in that neighborhood had I known that a multi-story apartment complex was going to be that close to the house that we bought. I have 2 young kids. They ride up and down Elk River all the time on their bikes, on their scooters. I would no longer be comfortable letting them do that with the amount of traffic that I fear it would bring in. What Casey said is true. I lost power in my neighborhood when he had to crash in his front yard. There are speeders all over. Where I live on Elk River, it's a dead end. It's no outlet. You go around the corner and there's 2 streets that end. People still speed like crazy where I live. So I'm very concerned about the amount of traffic that it could bring in. Let's see, I'm sorry y'all are getting a notes app since I just found out about it. I would have written a lovely letter had I known earlier. Oh, and so I have a question about what kind of traffic studies have been done about, or will that come in the future?
That's a good question.
Ronnie? Kyle?
Well, in reviewing the proposed number of units, it does not meet the threshold for a traffic impact analysis. So that I mean, there will be traffic generated from the development. If you go back to the site plan, it does show that the entrances are off Cumberland Road and Cherry Hill.
Sure, but it will still be going through our neighborhood, like Casey said, it comes straight down Cherry Hill to get there. So that's a concern. And then I think a traffic, if we move forward with this, I would urge you not to. I would urge you to vote against it. But if you do proceed, I think we need traffic studies, we need infrastructure studies. I don't know if y'all are aware, but Flat Rock collapsed. Y'all had to do, or the city had to do extensive work on the street. I'm not sure those streets in that area can handle the amount of traffic that this would generate. So I think that also property value concerns, of course, and then the school overcrowding. I know this isn't y'all's issue, but can Jack Elementary handle that many kids? That's a concern. My kids no longer go there because it got so overcrowded. So anyway, that's everything. I can write y'all a lovely letter once I have more time, but I just wanted to come and voice my opposition. So thank you so much. Questions?
Yeah, Ms. Collin, again, I apologize. Where do you live in proximity to the project?
So where the fire station is, and it's going to be like in there. If you go down Elk River, I'm right at the bend of Elk River.
Are you further east?
I'm horrible with directions. I'm so sorry.
To your right, or are you to your left?
I'm right here. Where it turns into Glade Mill, I'm like 2 houses in. I'm not the one on the corner. Yeah, that's me.
Right there. Okay.
So,
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission for Ms. Allison? Thank you so much for being here, Ms. Allison. Is there anyone else here to speak for or against this item? In opposition? Anyone here to speak on this item? If you could please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Jay Schultz, and my address is 14847 County Road 178 in Tyler, Texas, 75703. And I'm with the Blue Pinnacle Group, and we're selling the tract that's right on Cumberland Road that would be part of this property, or part of this development. And just my view of it overall is that it would be a really good transition from the residentials to the commercial that's going to be on the front. As was brought up, there's a gas station going on in the corner. So in order to do residentials in that particular area would not be favorable at all, because that's going to be putting residentials right next to commercial properties. So to me, a really good transition is to go from residential to planned multifamily to the commercial that's in the front. And I'm also the president of the Tyler Apartment Association, so I know that apartments virtually at this time are 100% occupied. So there is a huge need for apartments. I'm very familiar with Auburg Apartments. They're a beautiful apartment complex, by far the best one in Tyler. And this one is going to be very similar to Auburg. If there was going to be another development that would have to come in, say even another planned multifamily, I would have to think that it's not going to be near the quality of this particular development. And so the people that are in opposition are definitely going to be in opposition again for this project. So no matter what planned multifamily project goes in there, there's going to be opposition to it because it's multifamily. What if duplexes go in? It's just not going to get any better than what it is now when it's a great project the way it is. And prior to being Blue Pinnacle, we were Blue Ridge Group. And so we donated the fire station to the city of Tyler for the fire station, where we donated the land for it, for the fire station area. We donated the area for Jack Elementary as far as the land. We donated the land up and down Cumberland. So we're very, very concerned with what the development will look like. And we've kind of shaped the development so that it would be a great development for South Tyler. And just overall, I think it's a extremely good use. I think it's an extremely good project and would just be an asset for Tyler and would be an asset for the neighborhood. I fully understand the neighbors' opposition to having multi-story, but with these being backed off, with having a screening, and with the windows not facing in that direction, I just think it's a win-win all the way around. You're never going to have something that's perfect for everybody, but I think in this particular case that it's extremely good for the neighborhood, and I think it just works well for everybody in the area. In traffic. Okay, so most of the traffic is going to be going on to Cumberland Road, 80% of it. Very little of it's going to be going on to Cherry Hill. And I go up and down Cherry Hill on a regular basis, and there is some traffic, but it is not a lot of traffic. And the reason why you have the high speeds is because from Cumberland to the first stop sign, which is at Elk River, is just a straight gap or a straight run downhill. And it's like a lot of streets that are just straight runs and very little traffic really to speak of. That's why they're speeding in that particular area, because there's nothing to stop them. There's no cars in front, and that's the same thing on the other side of the road too. It is a cut through, but it's a south-north cut through. It's not a east-west that takes you over to Cumberland, or it takes you over to Old Jacksonville or over to Broadway as well too. So people really don't use that cutoff except to go through the neighborhood. They're not going to Broadway and they're not going to Old Jacksonville. They're just going north and south to get to Cumberland or Neighbors Road in the back. That's what I had to say.
Any questions from the commission?
Mr. Schultz, were you part of the original PMF zoning in 2008?
Yes.
You are? Okay. So so it sounds like that the plan has kind of changed, or your thoughts or opinions or support of the plan overall has changed since 2008.
Well, it's just a development of, you don't know what you're going to be putting in. So when we originally did the entire site plan, it was 425 acres.
Mm-hmm.
And this was started back in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
So you really don't know what you're going to have when you first start these projects. So you do a general outline and then you amend and modify as you go along depending on the market conditions.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? Thank you so much for being here.
All right, thank you.
Is there anyone else here to speak on this item? All righty. I did have one question for any of the residents. Is there a homeowners association? None? Okay. All righty. Any discussion between the commission, or if not, may I have a motion for this application?
One more question for city staff. What was your recommendation originally? What was the staff's recommendation?
Table it 30 days.
Table the item for 30 days.
Okay. Yes, Madam Chair, I recommend that we follow the guidance from the city staff and chair, or table it for 30 days.
Okay, I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. The item is tabled for 30 days. Next item, PD 22-011, Trek Interest LLC and Serco Properties LLC. Mr. Ronnie? We could have a minute while individuals exit the council chambers.
This is a zone change request from C1 Light Commercial District to PMXD Mixed Use District. This is a property that's located southwest intersection of Highland Lane and Oak Hill Boulevard. Looking at the surrounding zoning, east, north, and west is zone C1, which is commercial uses, developed with commercial uses, and the property to the south, right adjacent to it is the PMXD, and that's the mixed use use. Looking at the future land use guide, this is consistent with the future land use guide. It's identifying this property as mixed use center. The applicant is requesting the zone change to allow for residential lots. This initially came to us as a mixed use, but later the site plan was amended to reflect 45 residential units. Looking at the site plan, this will be a residential lots only. It's a 4-story. 45 residential units with the density of 30 units per acre. Setbacks would be 25 feet east and west, and to the north it will be 15, and then to the west is it will be 10 feet. The required parking spaces for this would be 90 parking spaces that will be required for a 45 residential unit, but the site plan shows 80 of it, and then also it indicates that the 10 additional parking spaces would be via shared parking agreement with the Ridge community that's already in place. And also talking to the agent, Mark Priestner, he mentioned that the first floor would have amenities for the community, and this will also be consistent with, it will complement the mixed use in the area where residents can walk around, use the commercial areas, and also live in that community. Out of the 14 notices that was sent, 1 was received in favor and 1 in opposition to the request, bringing it to 13.03%. The opposition stated that they would not like to have a multi-story development right across the street, and that would block their view of their buildings in the corner intersection. Staff has reviewed the request, and the residential lofts, it would complement the area. And also I would like to point out that there was access Ridge Drive that was in the middle right there, and this would be combined with that with the development. And looking at the site plan, the parking spaces would be to the west and also to the east. And Mark Priestner is here, and also I believe the applicant is here to talk more about this development. Staff has reviewed the request and recommends approval of this zone change from C1 to PMXD1.
Thank you, Ronnie. Any questions from the commission for city staff? There are no questions. Mr. Priestner? Please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Commissioners. Mark Priestner, 1121 East Southeast Loop 323. As Tarani pointed out, this is part of the Ridge development. So if you're not familiar with the Ridge, this is where Fresh is, a lot of mixed-use development in and around there. We did a project just to the south. You can see the PMXD1 just to the south a few years ago that is Copper Ridge, that contains the same urban loft apartments or the same style. This will be a separate project. We'll have more outdoor amenities like a pool and gathering area, but still in that urban loft style. When we originally laid out Oak Hills, this was intended as an urban center. So the mixed use designation, that all came out of what our original plan was. In fact, the PMXD came out because when we first did the Ridge, we didn't have a mechanism for mixed use. We only had PCD and PMF. So that was something that came kind of out of one of these projects, was developing this PMX. The thing I'd point out, and you know, you always understand people don't like change and the difference. This is currently zone C1. It has 42-foot height limitation. What we're proposing on this is a 50-foot height. It's 4-story, but 50-foot height. So what we're proposing in this development is only 8 feet taller than what's allowed by right now. The parking was always set up as shared use. We have deed restrictions across the whole, the ridge, which is everything in that area, to make sure that we have head-in parking off of these shared drives. It's made to be a true urban center. One of the key components in an urban center being successful is having residential in there. That's part of the atmosphere. So we think it's a really important project. We think it's a great project, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
All righty, thank you, Mr. Priestner. Any questions from the commission for Mr. Priestner? Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a Mr. Jefferson Holly. I'm sorry?
He was the previous applicant.
Okay.
PD 22011. 011. Okay.
Yeah, he must
That
have
was
put the wrong case. Okay, is the applicant here for this issue that would like to? Okay, just Mr. Priestner.
I think it's number 3.
All righty. Ms. Sherry Catton? You could please come to the podium and state your name and address. I hope I didn't mess up your last name too much. Thank you, dear.
Hi, I'm Sherry Caton, and my address is 2931 Elkton Trail, Tyler, Texas, 75703. And I'm currently the property manager and was the developer on Copper Ridge Phase 1. So this is just the next phase that we're trying to do. The demand has been incredible, and we feel like that definitely there is a lot of need for the same type of project in the area.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Sherry. Any questions for Ms. Sherry from the commission? Thank you so much for being
Ms.
here.
Hagan, I do have a question.
Sure.
Have you visited with the property owners that are in opposition?
No, sir, I have not. I think there's only one from my knowledge, and I did have 4 letters emailed to me that I did not think I quite made the deadline. I think we only had 1 make the deadline. There were also property owners in the area. I have the Lux Spa that's directly behind them. I have the Great Clips building. Also sent a letter in, and also the landowners from adjacent properties around had sent in letters too, in support of the project.
Okay.
Okay, thanks so much for being here. All righty, next we have J.P. Davis. You could please state your name and address at the podium. We would appreciate it.
Good afternoon. My name's J.P. Davis. I live at 6725 Speedway Court in Tyler. I was part of the development group that developed this area, and it was always intended to be a mixed-use development with residential and commercial. The Copper Ridge lofts that are there presently have been a big asset to the Ridge Shopping Center. They've been great neighbors with everyone around us. So I'm completely for the project and the zoning change. I think if there is opposition, I've heard that it was blocking of view, but I think if we're talking about restrictions of height, blocking view, you're going to block view with C1 already. So if we're voting against something because we're blocking view and the present zoning already would allow it to be blocked, I would have a little bit of issue with that. But Copper Ridge has been, like I said, a great asset, and I hope that y'all look favorably upon the zoning change. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any questions from the commission? Thank you so much for being here. All righty. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on this item? We don't have any other cards. Anyone else like to speak on this item? If not, are there any other questions by the commission? If not, may I have a motion for this application?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve PD 22-011.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Good luck with your project. Next item we have is Z22-033, Marion Ware. Mr. Caleb.
Yes, this is a zone change request from RMF residential multifamily to R1D single family attached and detached residential. This is the property. The applicant is requesting a zone change to develop a single family home on this property. The current zoning of RMF does not allow for single family development. The future land use guide identifies the property as single family and single family attached medium high density, which is consistent with this proposed zone change. Oh, I didn't mention the adjacent properties to the north, south, and west are all zoned RMF and are developed with single family homes or are generally undeveloped. And then the properties to the east are RMF and R1D and are also undeveloped as well. This is the property. As I mentioned, the applicant's requesting a zone change to build a single-family house, which would be consistent with the Tyler First guide of adding more, the Tyler First goal of adding more residences to the north end. Of the 24 notices that were sent out, none were returned in favor or in opposition, and staff recommends approval of this request.
Thank you, Mr. Caleb. Is there any questions from the Commission for City Staff? All righty. We have no cards or inputs on this item. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on this item? If not, can I hear a motion from the Commission?
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve Z22-033.
I have a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Our next item is Z22-038, Marion Ware.
Yes, this is a zone change request from RMF and C2 to R1D. Similar situation to the first. The applicant's requesting a zone change in order to combine the properties, all owned by the applicant there, into one, and then to develop a single-family home. The properties to the north and to the east are zoned RMF, or the north and to the west there, and a little to the south are zoned RMF and also C2, and is undeveloped. And also, I believe there's some single-family housing in that area as well. To the south, there's C2, and then to the west is RMF. Generally all either undeveloped or developed with single-family or some commercial uses to the east there. The future land use guide, or this is consistent with the future land use guide, which would identify this property as single-family and single-family attached medium high density. This is a similar situation to the previous item. The applicant, as I've said, they're planning to combine these lots into one in order to develop a single-family home, which then allows for a use consistent with the rest of that area. And once again, this is consistent with the Tyler First goal of adding more residences to the north end. Of the 24 notices, again, that were sent out, none were returned in favor or in opposition to the request, and staff recommends approval.
All righty. Any questions for city staff from the Commission? If not, we have no cards on this item. Is there anyone that would like to speak on this item? If not, can I get a motion from the Commission?
Madam Chair, I make a motion we approve item Z22-033.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Just to confirm, Madam Chairman, it was 038. Was that for 038 or 033?
038.
Okay, just to confirm. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Next item, Z22-034, Flores Carnelio Benitez.
This is a zone change request from M2 General Industrial to R1D Single Family Attached and Detached Residential District. The applicant is requesting the zone change in order to subdivide the property and to bring the property into conformance. There's currently two residences located on this property, zoned in inconsistent zoning with a single-family residence. The adjacent properties to the northeast, south, and also to the west are zoned M2 and are either undeveloped or to the east developed for industrial use. And then directly to the west, there is a portion of the property zoned RMH, mobile home residential, which is currently undeveloped. And then I believe there's also at least one single-family house there on the west of Old Gladewater. The future land use guide identifies this area as single-family medium-low density. This request would amend the future land use guide to single-family and single-family attached medium-high density. As I mentioned, there's already two houses already on the property, one over the property line, but if this was rezoned, they could still subdivide that property in half. It would still be meeting the criteria for that, for an R1, two R1D lots. So as I mentioned, there's the two houses. They we did receive back one letter of protest. There's really only one other property owner in this area that owns the industrial park there to the east. So they sent a letter back in protest, which brings a total protest calculation up to 61.07%. The opposition was generally against having, despite there already being an existing single family on the property, having a rezoning to single family, which might encourage more single family development in that area for an area that is primarily intended to be used for industrial. This portion here was at directly to the east. All those undeveloped lots were initially intended to be developed as single family, but were then, I believe, bought out by the industrial park there to the east, and they intend to expand into that area. So their opposition is generally against future single family development coming into this area, which would not be consistent with the industrial use in that area. Because of the overwhelming protest against it and the primary landowner and the concerns that they have, staff would recommend denial of this zone change to R1D. Important to note as well that the property is legally non-conforming in terms of its current use, so they wouldn't need the zone change in order to continue living on the property. But without it being in conformance, they wouldn't be able to further expand on the house or then subdivide as they were originally intending.
Okay.
So it's my understanding that the person or corporation in protest just doesn't want this individual to be able to further develop their property as a single family? Is that what I understand?
That's right. So we just, let's take a step back here a little bit. So we did receive that notice yesterday on this one, and so that's why there's a little bit of new information here. And typically, when we see these types of cases, if there is, up until now, up until yesterday, we weren't aware of any concern with the change or the proposal from the neighbors. But when we do hear back from the industrial activity in that area, that indicates that perhaps the future plans for that area are still going to be industrial activity. That's kind of what the neighbor is indicating, that this area is not, at least in their opinion, and based off of the large acreage that they own surrounding the property here, that the area is not yet, or it's still ready for expansion or use as an industrial activity, and not so much, carry over from previous, zoning or industrial zoning. In those other cases where that we have not heard of any impending or current industrial use, then that's where we've seen, we've recommended perhaps taking that to another zone or another land use. But in this case, since we do have that knowledge of, that this area is still an active industrial area, that we wouldn't recommend any further continuation through a zone change of that residential use. So like Caleb said, it could still remain single-family used, but it again, is legal non-conforming at this point, and that would be the effect of not approving the change.
But Kyle, a lot of times these come up primarily because of financing abilities and sale abilities. So if it continues to be an industrially zoned lot, then that would restrict the person's ability to for the use of their and saleability of their property as a single family home, which it currently is.
Sure.
So that I think that's probably one of my primary issues is for the owner of the existing property.
Is there someone here that represents the protest?
Can you come up, please, and state your name and address? Come up to the podium, please, and state your name and address for the record.
I'm for it. It's for the property owner. I'm for the property owner.
He's for the property owner.
Thank you. Hadamad.
Okay, you wanted someone?
Yeah, somebody representing the protest, whoever protested it, the red.
The Tyler Phoenix got my last name. Phoenix Tyler LLC.
It doesn't appear that there's
Protest isn't here.
And the protest, just to be clear, the protest was because the area is continuing to be used for industrial uses, and likely its future use for industrial uses as well is continuing and not for residential. That was their reasoning.
That's correct.
Okay, thanks.
Basically, they felt that if this individual got approved with residential, other individuals may want to come in and buy lots and become residential.
That's basically, I think that might be what they're
mindset.
intending. Yeah.
Okay.
And also that their future plans may impact, not just this owner, but future owners as well, if it can be transferred and all that.
Okay.
But I can't speak necessarily for them, just what we've seen in their letter. Yeah.
Gotcha. Any other questions for city staff?
Well, can the applicant speak?
Yeah, we're calling him up now.
Okay.
If you could please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
German Florence. My address is 2310 Old Glaywater. I'm 35 years old. I've lived my whole life there. My father owns the 2310 Old Glaywater. My father also owns both of those houses across the street, which is the ones that they're trying to split. So it's 3 kids. I'm going to stay with 2310 when my dad passes away. The other 2 were already handed over to my brother and my 2 brothers. So the only reason that he wants to rezone it was so they can actually go ahead and start transferring stuff. And that way my father can leave everything in order before he passes away. And that's one of the reasons, because when it comes to tax seasons, they're always discussing, well, you owe this much, so then my brother's like, I just want to get it over with, let's split it, while he's still, mentally there, let's go ahead and get it transferred. But we've owned that property probably 40 years maybe. Phoenix came in and made a real low-ball proposal to try to buy us out. And, that's basically what it boils down to. They're trying to buy it and just cheap buy it. And actually, they're trying to buy my land as well across the street, which that's why I'm here. But I just saw that my brother had actually submitted to divide the land. When you look at the Smith County map site, this overview, it does look like the houses are over. But when I get it surveyed, if you look across the street, the multicolor roof, which is my dad's house, you can see, and that's one of the biggest concerns that I had before my dad passed away. I had a survey, because I was like, you know, my cousin owns the house next to it, so we've owned that whole neighborhood basically forever. And my concern was that it was cutting through the middle of my house. I was like, well, that's gonna be an issue, and if we are still alive and talking to each other, we need to handle it now. So I had this survey, and no, it's not where they show. And Carrier had their fence actually, a chain link fence, and I don't think Carrier would have thrown a fence where it didn't belong. So yeah, Carrier shut down, and Phoenix has came in and bought out the church, which was a pretty good asset to the neighborhood, but bought the church out and just bought my cousin's house next door to me. So to the left. So I think we've been there a little bit longer than Phoenix has. I mean, I understand they want to maybe grow the area, but I mean, I think it would be best if we subdivide it so my father can leave stuff in order before he passes away.
Any questions for Mr. Flores from the commission?
Okay, so Mr. Flores, which home do you occupy?
Roof, that's the one I live in.
That's the one you live in?
Yes.
Okay, and then the subject property is your brother's?
My two brothers.
Your two brothers?
My older brother, yes.
Okay.
Belongs to my father.
Okay.
Which my oldest brother is the one trying to subdivide it. And went through the motions to try to split it so that way we can go ahead and do the paperwork and stuff like that, I guess.
Okay, all right, and so do we have a replat of this as well? Is that coming too,
No,
or not aware of
this time,
anything?
no,
Kyle?
so it wouldn't be compliant without the lot size or the zoning. So
Without the
because of
zoning,
the lot
right?
size
Yes,
restriction.
sure. So obviously the reason for the zoning first.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So just to make sure I understand, if we did vote for this, would that it now become non-legal, non-conforming, and it would trigger further action on the owner's part to rectify any issues like?
No, it would remain as it has been for, 40 years or so, that it's legal non-conforming, so it was formerly allowed to be, to have a single-family home in industrial zoning when it was built, and that has changed. And so, there's no illegal action here or enforcement issue here. It's just once the nonconformity, no longer exists, then whatever's built there would have to come into compliance, which could not be a single-family home at that point. So, but no, there's no enforcement action if the zone change is not approved.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it does affect the marketability of their property if it is not approved, or at least that's been our experience when we've been going in the other direction where someone is trying to sell their property, and an appraisal comes back and says can't move forward with the lending because it's not selling appropriately.
Right, if that's something that the lender requires.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sounds like even transferring title.
Yeah, that's basically what it boils down to. As a matter of fact, the house on the right can probably be torn down. That's how bad conditions is.
Any other questions from the commission for Mr. Flores?
So basically, her mom, what you're saying is this is for you and your family to get your affairs in order so y'all can move forward.
Yes, because you never know.
In your father's will, right?
We just lost our mother unexpectedly, and we're trying to handle this before anything happens. And that has always been the plan. I mean, as a matter of fact, my brother used to live on the house on the left, and now my uncle lives in it. And my other brother lives on the one on the right, and I'm stuck with my dad on the other one.
You're not stuck, that's a blessing.
That's a blessing, yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we have no other cards or any other online requests. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak on this item, for or against? If not, may I have a motion for this application?
Before we move forward, just to make sure that, let's say there was a motion to approve and we have this much protest, it would go to city council, and
Yes. So as it exceeds the 20% threshold or 20% protest calculation, City Council would have to approve it with a supermajority or a three-quarter majority to be able to approve the item.
Okay.
Any other questions? All righty, may I have a motion for this application?
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve Z22-034.
I have a motion for
Second.
approval. I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Good luck with your project, Mr. Flores. Next item is Z22-035, Flores, German, Hernandez, and Letitia.
Yes, this is a zone change request from RMH, mobile home residential or manufactured home residential zoning to R1A, single family residential. This is right across the street from the previous zone change request. The applicant is requesting the zone change to develop a single family home, much like the ones that we see that are zoned multifamily. RMH doesn't only allows for manufactured homes on the property, or a manufactured home park. It would not allow for a single-family home, so the applicant's requesting a zone change to develop a single-family home. The adjacent properties to the north, east, south, and west are zoned M2 and are undeveloped or developed with single-family homes, and the property to the north is zoned C2 and is also undeveloped. The future land use guide identifies the property as single family attached, medium high density, and this would amend the future land use guide to be single family, medium low density. That's the property in question. And this is a similar situation to the previous application. We had one letter in protest, which is the industrial park there to the east. And that total protest calculation comes out to be 44.95. So it's a very similar situation to this previous one. As I mentioned, they're planning on developing a single-family house, which would accomplish the Tyler First goal of more houses in the north end. Because the requested zoning is R1A, R1A wouldn't allow the property to be further subdivided based on the current lot size. So, if that's a concern. Similar to the last request, just because of the large amount of protest from that area, the same staff comments are the same in general for this, which would be that staff would recommend denial based on that.
But clarify, recommended, again, because of the indication of the continued industrial activity in that area and how that would not allow for a suitable environment for a detached single-family home to be built.
And what are those other areas that are not protesting zoned? C2?
C2 along East Gentry, and then again, industrial. Well, one of those properties is owned by the Flores family.
Okay. Gotcha. Any other questions for city staff from the commission?
Kelly, you brought up an interesting point. So R1A would not allow it to be further developed. And it doesn't appear that there's any intention to do that. It's just to construct a single-family home, and there is no single-family home currently on the property, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
But they could put more than one single-family home.
Not with the
No.
R1A zoning. R1A requires 9,000 square feet.
Okay.
I don't remember the exact square footage of this.
1.55 acres.
I think even with street frontage, there wouldn't be enough
frontage.
street frontage
Gotcha.
for two
Frontage.
lots, even
Okay.
if there is able to be two sized lots. But
Any other questions for city staff? Is anyone, we don't have any cards or any online inputs. Is there anyone here to speak for this item? You again, Mr. Flores? Please give your name and address again for the record.
German Flores, 2310 Old Bay Waters, where I currently stay. Bought this property next door. Since I can remember, there's an older lady that lived there. Always wanted us to buy that property. Kiddos had other things in mind. The house, there was actually sold for a single home. It burnt down. Some other lady bought it. She was planning on putting a mobile home there, which I never knew about this zoning stuff, so I never protested against it. I always thought that a modular home, I could always come in here and put a single home, you know, or something better. I mean, the worst case scenario, if it doesn't get approved, I guess I can just throw a couple of mobile homes and make more money that way. But that's where I plan on making my house. Thinking about a 3,000 square foot home to build there. And again, they're offering me very little money for the property. So that's where I was planning on building my house. And I mean, I didn't want to buy far away because my father's, you know, not that great in shape. So that's the reason I'm still there, because I take care of him. So that's why I wanted to build my house next to him, because at the end of the day, I'm going to have about 3 acres there when it's all done and said. So, yeah, I mean, I just want to build my house. I've been decided to build since 2017, and I beat myself about it for not starting back then.
Gotcha. Any questions from the commission for Mr. Flores? All righty. Thank you so much for being here, Mr. Flores. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this item? Is there anyone here to speak on this item pertaining to it, for or against? If not, may I have a motion for this application?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve Z22-035.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Good luck with your project, Mr. Flores.
And Mr. Flores, I might recommend, I don't know if you understood, but Mr. Reed made the point that with that amount of protest, the people protesting can still come to the city council meeting for when it's supposed to be approved. We would recommend that you be there if you'd like to face that opposition. Okay.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Flores. The next item is C22-002, Barbay EH Estate.
Yes, this is a right-of-way closure request for portions of Crestway Drive, Travis Street, and Woodley Street, all currently undeveloped portions. This is the portion that they're requesting to close. I'll go to the aerial there. It's a little easier to see. So I believe that is Woodley Street running east-west there on the north, and Travis Street, they're running east-west on the south. And then the northwest portion is Crestway Drive, which is all three undeveloped. There is a tributary of Black Fork Creek that runs through this portion of the property, north-south, along that main chunk, which would make the property not able to be developed. So as I mentioned, it wouldn't be able to be developed. The applicant is requesting the zone change, or the street closure, in order to incorporate that into their surrounding properties. There isn't a plat, I believe, yet for this section. It would be pending the street closure. But the applicant would incorporate it into they own a few of the lots here surrounding that they would incorporate this section into. Of the 9 notices that were, or more than 9, of the notices that were sent out, 1 was returned in favor and 1 was returned in protest, for a total protest calculation of 5.55%. The protest stated that the alley's being used for UPS, FedEx, and USPS deliveries, as well as yeah, there was one letter. No protest. There you go.
Okay.
All righty.
Staff has reviewed the request and recommends approval of the road closure.
All righty. Are there any questions for city staff from the commission?
Caleb, I have a question specifically about whenever this is closed, what about being able to turn around and that type of thing for this area? Is that something that would be coming in the future, or is that something we talk about later?
If anything, it would come up during the platting of the
platting phase.
Mhm.
Okay.
If we would require a U-turn or a turnaround there.
Okay.
The roads currently are, as I mentioned, dead ending right there,
Mhm.
and then that portion is undevelopable because of that creek. I
Mhm.
don't know if I can speak to what we'd require, but it would be done during the platting process.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for city staff? All righty, we have one online submission from Mr. Alan Utz. Utz.
I didn't know I did it online. I'm just here to answer any questions or concerns.
All righty. Let the record,
Oh, sorry. I apologize.
let the record show that Alan Utz, he didn't put an address. Okay. Was here for questions. Since we have no other cards, okay. You would like to come up?
Yes, please.
Okay, please. State your, come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, David Craig. I'm the owner of the property at 1116 Woodley Street in Tyler, 75701. I just have a couple of questions here, concerns. I'm not necessarily against it or for it yet. I just had some unanswered questions. I called and I couldn't get the answers, and they recommended that I come here to try to get those answers. Yeah, the question that I have is, will that require a change from the R2 in the replatting? My understanding that R2 is only single family or duplexes, is that correct?
That's correct.
That's correct, okay. So if they wanted to add quadplexes or more things, would they be able to do that in the R2, or would they have to change that?
To have more than a duplex on one lot, yeah, it would need a zone change to allow anything more than a duplex.
So as far as we know at this time, there's no plan to change the zoning from R2?
I mean, the applicant is here to discuss if they have any plans for that site. But as of today, we don't have anything on the agenda to discuss that.
All right, my second question is, the street's not maintained very well, there's potholes in it. Will this mean that it would be less maintained by the city if this thoroughfare is closed? The street's awful.
If it's, right, well, I was just going to say, I mean, you may come up, yeah, but I was going to say that anything in the right of way, if it's a city street, it's going to be maintained as they normally would. So I understand there might be some concerns with that, but this would not change that. Yeah.
Those are my two questions. So if he can answer those, then I can state whether I'm for or against it.
Thank you so much for being here. If you could please come up to the podium and state your name and address, Mr. Utz. And if you could address that question.
Yes, I'm Alan Utz. My physical address is 15399 County Road 26 in Tyler, 75707. And to answer that question, our office is currently writing a check to the city of Tyler to improve the water utilities. And they're upgrading, I believe, Kyle, I think it's a 2-inch water service. It's going to be increased to 4 and fire hydrants and such. So I would think, and I don't know the line item specifics, but just the work that's going to happen in Woodley and Travis, they're going to loop the water system. Just that work alone, I would think there's going to be some upgrade to the streets. I don't know specifically, but once you put that kind of water line in, there's gonna be some kind of work done. And I agree with you, they are in poor repair, so. Yeah, that's all I've got, unless y'all got questions.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, zoning.
That's in the works, we're probably months and months away from there. Many months. I had no idea how hard this was. Kyle could I've been working on this project for 2 years.
Especially with a creek running under it.
So, Mr. Utz, the question is, or do you plan on pursuing a rezoning request?
At a much later date, yes.
Okay. Do you have any idea what you would be rezoning to, or do you have any ideas about your future plans?
Planned multifamily.
A PMF, okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Utz while he's here? Thank you so much for being here. All right.
And I love to say this concerning your streets, you should contact your city councilman.
Okay. I just walked
Love
up here
that.
ago.
Yeah.
All righty. We don't, yes, sir.
Okay, if, in that case, if it's going to be rezoned in the future, we would be against the, this project.
Okay. Thank you so much for being here. All righty. We don't have any other online requests or manual. So is there anyone else that would like to speak on this item? Okay, if not, may I have a motion for the application?
Madam Chair, I make a motion we approve item C22-002.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Good luck with your project. Next item, Z22-032, Velasquez, Omar, and Adhelinda.
I'm back again. This
Thank
is
you,
a zone
Mr.
change
Lanning.
request from C1, that's light commercial district, to R1D, single family attached and detached residential district. This is a property that's located at the northwest intersection of Grand Avenue and Martin Luther King Boulevard, that's 2004 North Grand Avenue. The applicant is requesting a zone change to bring the existing residential use into conformance. There is a structure, a home that's already on the property. It was a result of the pyramid zoning, and the applicant want to bring into conformance. Looking at the zoning, the north is northwest and east is C1 and is single-family homes, and R2 is also single-family homes, so the whole area is predominantly developed with single-family homes. The future land use guide, right now it's mixed-use center. This would amend the future land use guide to a single-family, medium-low density. That's the home on the property. This would also be in the north end, so this is an addition to bring into conformance of the house that's already on there. Out of the 20 notices that was sent, 1 in favor and no in opposition to the request, and staff recommends approval of the zone change.
Thank you, Ms. Thorani. Any questions for city staff from the commission? If not, we have one online submission from Ms. Adelinda Velasquez. Could you please come to the podium and state your name and address for the records?
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Adelinda Velasquez. On my property, 2004 North Grand. My husband and I purchased it back in 2017. And it's been a single-family home. We have rented it out, and it's been rented for a while until now that we are looking into selling the property. It's been appraised, and I was told that it was zoned commercial. I was never aware of that until now that I'm trying to sell, and I currently have a buyer waiting, but his loan is not approved on a commercial property, so I can't sell. So I'm just requesting that it is changed as residential, what it's always been used for.
Gotcha. Any questions from commission staff, Ms. Adelinda?
No.
All right, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
If we have no other online requests or manual requests, is there anyone else that would like to speak on this item? If not, may I have a motion for this application?
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve Z22-032.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Next item is Z22-037, Miranda Property Holdings LLC.
This is a zone change request from C1, that's a light commercial district, to R2, two-family residential district. This is a property that's located in the southeast intersection of North Broadway Avenue and Martin Luther King Boulevard. And the applicant is requesting the zone change. There is a current structure on that property. They want to use that property as a duplex. That's the reason they're requesting the zone change. I'm looking at the surrounding zoning. To the north, the C1 is undeveloped. To the south and east is R1D and a single-family homes is developed, and to the west is R2 and is location of a church. The future land use guide, this would amend the future land use guide. It's a mixed-use center now, and this would be to single-family and single-family attached. So this would amend the future land use guide. That's the structure that's already on the property. They want to use it as a duplex to have 2 units. They also have access through the alley to the south, so they will probably have parking to the north and also to the south as well. That would be adequate parking space for duplex. And this would add more houses in the north end, so having the structure now has 2 units. That will be in addition to the Tyler first goal. Out of the notices sent, none was received in favor nor in opposition to the request, and staff recommends approval of the zone change from C1 to R2.
All righty. Any questions from the commission for Mr. Ronnie? Okay, we have no online or manual submissions. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on this item? If not, may I have a motion for the application?
Make a motion, we approve item Z22-037.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Now to plats. Our first item is F22-022, St. Louis Heights, Third Amendment.
This is a 2-lot subdivision, approximately 0.27 acres. It's located southwest intersection of Patrick Street and Reinhardt Street. It's currently zoned R1B. They want to subdivide the lot into 2. Since it's a residential zoning, it required notices, and that's why it's on the agenda. The staff has reviewed, and all the staff comments have been addressed, and staff recommends approval of this plat.
All righty. Any questions for city staff? No. We have no submissions for this. Is there anyone here to speak on this item? If not, may I have a motion for the application for the plat?
Madam Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve F22-022.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Next plat is F22-063, Henshaw Creek, Unit 2, final plat.
This is a 1-lot containing approximately 1.48 acres. It's located along west of the northwest intersection of 3 Lakes Parkway and Hillcross Cove. This is currently in the Zone 2 of Tyler ETJ. The purpose of the plat is to create 1 lot and also dedicate additional right-of-way to the 3 Lakes Parkway. There you go. All the staff comments have been addressed, and staff recommends approval of this plat.
All right. Any questions from the commission? All righty. We have no submissions. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on this item? If not, may I have a motion from the commission?
Madam Chair, I make a motion we approve F22-063.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Next plat, P22-017, Farm Road 3271 addition, preliminary plat.
This is a 54-lot subdivision. It is located in the ETJ at approximately 34.05 acres. On the southeast intersection of State Highway 110 and Farm to Market Road 3271. There you go, that's the stretch of property. The applicant is proposing to plan for 54 lots. All the staff comments have been addressed, and staff recommends approval of this plat.
All righty, any questions for city staff? If not, we have no submissions. Would anyone like to speak on this item? If not, may I have a motion for this plat?
Madam Chair, make a motion, we approve item P 22-017.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Next is P22-019, Legacy Bend preliminary plat. Mr. Kyle?
All right, so this next plat is it's an amended plat for Legacy Bend, the preliminary plat. And this is, overall, it's 102 lot subdivision. The purpose of the plat here is to, let me get to the plat here, is to adjust some of the phasing lines within the subdivision, as well as, or the units and phases, as well as to show some additional lots. The preliminary plat does propose a cul-de-sac in excess of the maximum length of 600 feet. There's a cul-de-sac street that extends, I think it's probably best to show it on here. It does show, that's an extension that's over, it's about 720 feet from that intersection there at the end of the street. When you combine that with the other street there, is much longer than 700 feet. The applicant has requested a variance to the cul-de-sac length to not make the connection for that street to Holly Tree Drive. In reviewing that, well, as of today, staff has reviewed it just without any information from the applicant regarding the rationale, but staff does not recommend approval of the variance to the cul-de-sac length that would disconnect or allow for the disconnection of that street to Holly Tree Drive, because that would create an excessively long dead end or street without any other connection point. And it appears, based off the information that we have, would be that connection could logically be made to Holly Tree Drive, which would again provide better connectivity for public safety and services. So at this point, staff recommends denial of the plat.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Kyle from?
I have a question for Kyle. We have given variance to this before, primarily in use whenever you have larger lots. And so why the rationale to not allow the variance? This seems somewhat similar to what we've done in the past.
Yeah, well, I think in other, maybe not in every instance, but in other cases, there was perhaps some other factor that prevented connectivity to reduce that length. And so once you had that as in addition to the limited number of lots, then those two factors together would, can come into play. In this case, and again, I believe, Mr. Brewer is here. He may be speaking on this plat, but the previous preliminary plat did show the connection to Holly Tree Drive, which would eliminate the need for the variance, and so without any other knowledge or justification for the cul-de-sac length, that would be what we're looking at. There appears to be a way to not have to get a variance from the ordinance.
Okay.
So if they met the required length, city staff would be okay with it?
Right, yes.
Gotcha.
So if it complied with the ordinance.
And you're saying the tipping point is not because of the lot size or the anticipated amount of traffic. You're saying that if there are two reasons why, rather than just one, then the staff would support.
The instances I can think of off the top of my head has been where, like, there's other ones over there off of Paluxy, or I think it's Paluxy. They are similar cases, but there was no other real means to like connect any to other street, and so
talking about like Copper Cove.
Yes,
is that what you're talking about?
That's one where one way to address that would be to connect the two cul-de-sacs together to reduce that length, but at that point, you're still not going anywhere. So we do have the opportunity here to, if it's, so the factor, the considerations for a cul-de-sac length, I guess is what I'm saying, is not purely the lot size.
Okay,
so
thanks.
Any other questions for Mr. Kyle? All righty. We have no submissions. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on this item? Mr. Brewer, please come to the podium and state your name and address.
Hello, Trey Brewer, 3050 Union Plaza. I'm here to request the variance for the 720-foot length of street there. We have received 2 variances to this before, and one of them was Copper Cove, you're correct, and the other one is just across the stream there in Maple, we call it Maple Lane. And the primary reason for us requiring or requesting a variance is that when we went through the legacy bin zoning of all the 300 acres here, we heard from residents that they didn't appreciate, they didn't want any cut-through streets. And they didn't want people racing down in front of their houses to get to I guess where they're going. And this is we're taking feedback from neighbors into our master plan and trying to make sure that we can that we listen to folks and our neighbors, and so that's the point. We're trying to eliminate cut-through streets and listen to the neighbors. So, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Mr. Brewer?
Well, oh yes, yeah, one more question, sorry. One question. So feasibly you can connect back to Holly Tree. There's nothing that would prohibit you from connecting, is that true?
We could, we wouldn't though. We would just shorten it 100 feet and put bigger lots there. Nobody wants, the other thing we heard in the zoning was nobody wants to live along Holly Tree Drive because it's a collector. This property has 2 master street plan streets, Cherry Hill and Holly Tree, that the city is requiring us to build and dictate kind of the lot layout or the street layout. And so we're trying to put as many secluded areas as we can so folks can have private homes. So if this was an issue, then we would just shorten the street and make the lots bigger. So,
yeah. Thanks.
Yep.
Any other question from the commission for Mr. Brewer? All righty.
I have a question for Cameron came up, but I have a question, or I'd like to hear from Cameron what he believes maybe the impact would be. I apologize.
Mr. Cameron, if you could please come and state your name and address for the record.
Sure. Cameron Williams, I'm traffic engineer for the city of Tyler. One of the things that we look for from a development is connectivity. And so providing connectivity of streets, our ordinance does say no dead-end streets. And that's kind of the way it states, unless there's a reason, and cul-de-sacs are that. From a traffic perspective, increased connectivity, connecting that down to Holly Tree is desired and preferred and what would be recommended. Think of it as it may not be a big deal, but think if you got a pitcher, an empty pitcher, and you're pouring 1 glass of water into it, not a big deal. But you continue to pour glasses of water, eventually that's going to overflow. And so every time you reduce connectivity in a neighborhood, you're forcing traffic back to one point. And so from this standpoint, all that traffic would have to go to Cherry Hill, as opposed to having 2 outlet points of Cherry Hill or to Holly Tree. Also from a fire response standpoint, the fire station I believe that serves this neighborhood is down fire station number 2, which is on Cherry Hill south of Cumberland. And so for them to come up, they'd have to come all the way up and around those cul-de-sacs in order to serve them. And so those are several different items to keep in mind. Definitely hear the concerns about cut through and speeding. Those are things that we deal with all over town. And so what can we do to do better to address those? Those are things that we're looking at. From a design standpoint, you could always look at adding some geometry in the street and reducing straight cut through, straight paths. So those are things that could be done. So I hear those concerns. Those are things that we are actually trying to put together a traffic calming policy that we could use throughout the city to address those type of concerns that we have. But again, connectivity is a big point, and reducing that, you see that all over town where you're forcing people out to one option of how they get somewhere, and that increases traffic at certain loading points and reduces your options. So that's kind of for my recommendation and concerns and thoughts.
Okay. Thank you, Cameron.
Thank you, Mr. Cameron. Any other questions for Mr. Cameron? All righty. And would the city staff recommend?
No.
No.
Yes, denial.
Okay.
The current layout, yes.
All righty. We don't have any other submission. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this item? If not, may I have a motion for this application?
Madam Chair, I recommend that we deny P22-019.
I have a motion. Can I have a second? If not, do I have another?
Before we move forward, I want to talk about response times for fire safety and police safety, that kind of thing. Would this, if the length of this cul-de-sac, would that put it outside of any kind of compliance for fire or police response or anything? Cameron, thanks.
I do not know the answer to that question. I'm not prepared to provide. Not that I'm aware of, but I don't know. That would probably be a question for fire and police.
For fire, okay.
But the 700 is?
So the, and Kyle can correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure.
We've got the 600 feet is the length of that cul-de-sac. And I believe that is based on a fire hydrant length.
Gotcha.
And so there are, if you put fire hydrants at the end of a cul-de-sac, then that may kind of, providing those distances helps address that concern from a fire concern on the distance of those.
Gotcha.
Yeah, a little bit.
So number of fire hydrants, like they have to be spaced every 500 feet.
Well,
but
sure.
is that what you're saying?
The idea behind the 600 feet, just where that kind of comes from, is the length of hose a fire truck would have on it, and typically you'd have hydrants at each intersection. And so once you get beyond that, that's kind of why there's that cap on it. And so I think what Cameron's saying is that perhaps there's, from a fire safety standpoint, if we're just looking at that issue, not so much response, but, safety from a fire standpoint, that if there's a hydrant there, then that's not an issue. But from a response time, that's, if there's no connection there, if they reduce the distance, then no, we don't have the information on whether that would slow anything down.
And it sounds like it's 100 feet.
Sure.
Sounds like the distance is 100 feet.
Sure.
Okay. All right. I think I'm ready.
All righty. We have a motion on the table denying the plat. Do I have a second? All in favor? Say aye. I don't have a second, so.
No second.
Okay, do I have another motion to be proposed?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve P22-019.
I have a motion for approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carried. Good luck with your, it was denied or approved? I forgot. It was approved.
Approved.
Good luck with your project.
Including the variance.
Right.
Including a variance.
Yes.
Okay.
All righty, next item is.
Request, I'm sorry. Okay.
Next item.
The next plat is pardon me? What's that? Your vote was 3? Or was your vote?
April, you need something?
Madam Chair,
you want to call roll or something?
3-1. Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't
Motion
know I was
carried.
supposed to be.
You vote?
Majority.
Yeah.
You did?
I vote, approve.
That's not.
Vote for approval? Okay. All right.
Next item, F22-060, the Glen final plat. Mr. Kyle or Ms. Thorani?
This is a two-lot subdivision, approximately 11.88 acres. This is located in the ETJ, in the Flint area. The purpose of the plat is to create 2 lots for development. Staff recommends approval of this plat.
All righty. Any questions for Mr. Kyle? We have no submissions. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on this item? If not, may I have a motion for the plat?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve F22-060.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Now we're on to consent plats, Group A. Kyle, I
Yes.
think you said all of them.
Yes, all plats on the consent group A agenda meet the criteria for approval, and staff recommends approval.
All righty, that includes P22-004 Elton Trail preliminary plat, P22-018 South Loop 323 addition preliminary plat, F22-058 South Loop 323 addition final plat, and F22-056 Park Central Tyler addition final plat. Is there anyone here to speak on this item? If not, I will entertain a motion from the commission.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve consent plats, Group A.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Next is consent plat Group B. Same?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, the plats you see here, I'll list them off. F22062, Barbie Woodley addition, F22066, RN Berry subdivision, F22039, Eastern Acres addition, F22061, Peachtree subdivision, and F22, I think there are more, F22057, DG Estates addition, P22020 North 40 Manor, F22059 North 40 Manor final plat, F22064 Hilltop edition, and F22-065 Seaton edition. All these plats have outstanding technical review deficiencies, and so staff recommends denial of all these plats.
All righty. And for F22-062, we do have one submission by Mr. Alan Boots.
Again, just Chair, for questions and concerns.
All right.
So this is one that has to wait on the closure to go through before the plat.
Procedural.
Yes.
Okay.
All righty.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no one else here to speak on this item, I'll entertain a motion from the commission.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we deny consent plats, Group B.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. And we will now recess for the work session across the street. Meeting